Now, Bangladesh's ruling party swept to victory, giving Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina a fifth term.
Well, the final result and exact figures will be formally announced at a ceremony which is going to happen later today. Election Commission officials there in Bangladesh said that Hasina's party had won around 3/4 of the seats, and that is at least 220 of the total 300.
Now, her party faced almost no effective rivals in the seats it contested, but it avoided fielding candidates in a few constituencies. In an apparent effort to avoid the legislature being branded a one-party institution, initial reports suggest that the poll boycotted by the main opposition had a turnout of some 40%.
Sheikh Hasina has presided over breakneck economic growth in a country once beset by grinding poverty. But her government has been accused of rampant human rights abuses and a ruthless opposition crackdown.
Now, the BNP claims that 25,000 of its members are behind bars. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party is one of dozens of parties that refuse to compete in the polls, saying it will neither be fair nor free. Sheikh Hasina said the main party boycotting Sunday's national elections was a terrorist organization.
I have to prove credibility, right? To whom? To whom? A terrorist party? A terrorist organization? No. I have my accountability to people, to the people. Whether people accepted it or not, whether they have accepted this election or not, that is important.
People in Bangladesh voted in a parliamentary election fraught with violence till now. At least 18 arson attacks have taken place in the country. Authorities have blamed much of this violence on the BNP.
Now, officers of the port city of Chittagong broke up an opposition protest on Sunday, firing shotguns and tear gas canisters. But election officials said that the voting was largely peaceful, with nearly 800,000 police officers and soldiers deployed countrywide.
Politics in the world's 8th populous country has been dominated by the battle of Begums. Bangladesh's main opposition party, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, did not participate in what it termed as a sham election.
Now, furthermore, it claimed that 25,000, as we mentioned earlier, 25,000 of its members are behind bars. However, Sheikh Hasina's government maintains that it has arrested about 11,000 members.
Now, people in Bangladesh voted in a parliamentary election fraught with violence. At least 18 arson attacks, as we mentioned earlier, have taken place in the country. Authorities have blamed much of that violence on the BNP. Now, the opposition party and its allies have staged months of protests, demanding Sheikh Hasina to step down as the Prime Minister.
Now, ever since she took to office in 2019, the BNP office claims that the Hasina government has filed over 130,000 cases against more than 5 million of its leaders, activists and supporters. On one hand, Sheikh Hasina has claimed that the BNP was a terrorist organization seeking to sabotage the elections.
While on the other hand, BNP head Tariq Rahman claimed that the Election Commission was capable of increasing the voter turnout by using fake votes. Now, the UN Human Rights Council has documented serious abuses by Bangladesh authorities. These include mass arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearance, torture, extrajudicial killings, and a widespread repression.
As per the UN review, Bangladesh authorities arrested over 10,000 opposition members and activists in November 2023. The Bangladesh government delegation dismissed the accusations and denied any evidence of using excessive force during the protest staged by the opposition party.
Sheikh Hasina's government claimed that no arrests were made with any political considerations in mind. The Bangladesh government also claimed the responses from the law enforcement were minimal, reasonable, and restrained.
Meanwhile, one of the country's key newspapers, that's the Daily Manav Zamin, has claimed that its website has been blocked. The country's largest Bengali language newspaper is recognized for critiquing the government. Now, for more on this, we're now being joined by Dr. Nikhil Deb, Assistant Professor of Sociology, California Polytechnic State University, San Luis. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Now, sir, a record fifth term for Sheikh Hasina. What are your thoughts on her re-election and what does this mean for Bangladesh?
Yeah, thank you. And, I think if we look at the real scenarios on the ground, it doesn't really look like a promising and auspicious scenario for a democratic future in Bangladesh. Again, you cited in your report, some observations made by different independent organizations. And if we look at the observations made by different independent organizations, including some human rights organizations, and that includes Human Rights Watch, they have seriously questioned the credibility and fairness of the election. So I believe, the ruling government has, to a great extent, failed to create a condition to secure the participation of opposition party actually in this election. So it will remain or go down to the history as a questionable event in the democratic history of Bangladesh.
Mr.
So
Dev,
this is definitely. Yes, please go ahead.
I also wanted to get your thoughts on this. How do you think Bangladesh's relationship with India and China particularly would, move forward, given that there is an incumbent government now?
This is a great question. I don't think actually that the relationship with either China or India would be significantly hampered because of this questionable election. Because so far we know that the current Indian administration has a very warm relationship with the Sheikh Hasina administration, and it hope to continue in the coming days. And of course, China, since this is another emerging power in the world, and I think at least so far my observation or political observation is concerned, Bangladesh continues to maintain a very balanced relationship with both China and India. So I think as far as the relationship between China and India, between China and Bangladesh and India and China, India and Bangladesh is concerned, I think it's not going to be that different. But again, it will be probably changing after India's upcoming election. So.
Right, sir, and you touched on this earlier and we mentioned this in our report as well. But just for more clarity on this, as per the UN Human Rights Council, the Bangladesh authorities have been blamed of mass arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearances, torture, extrajudicial killings, widespread repression. Now, just for better understanding here, what can we expect on that front, if anything at all?
Yeah, I think, again, in my belief, view, it was incumbent upon the ruling government to create conditions for a free and fair elections. And of course, we don't support the kind of violence that was resorted by the opposition parties to protest this one-sided election. However, again, as you mentioned, just because the opposition parties are protesting this unfair election, the ruling government should not have cracked down on the movements that was going on against or to ensure a fair and free election, because this is part and parcel of democracy. And Bangladesh, since its independence, has faced so many political and democratic setbacks. And it is, I would say, very unfortunate that a party that has a very strong relationship with its history, Bangladesh Awami League, is seemingly becoming very questionable in its practices when it comes to upholding democratic ideals in the country. So it should have actually done better than what it actually has done in this recent election.
All right, Mr. Dev, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Pleasure to speak with you, and we will be in touch as this progresses further.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me again. Thank you.